The old saying in the NBA was live by the three, die by the three. Now, it seems to be threes win championships. But have they gone too far? Has three-point shooting become a problem as the fan complaints are piling up about the way NBA offense is currently played? I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you subscribe right here to the channel. Said it before, but only about 20% of you are actually subscribed to the channel right now. The other 80%, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button. All right, so here's Brian Windhorst recently on ESPN addressing the NBA's three-point pandemic. And then I want to get into whether or not change is needed for the league. Take a look.
I'm not just saying this, Chiney, because we saw a record for most missed threes and most made threes in a game in the same weekend, because that's what we just saw. I have felt this way for a while, and I don't think I'm alone, that the NBA is out of balance. You're in a better spot when there's more of a balance, where the three-point shot is part of the game, not the entire game. And obviously, the Warriors are a team that has defined this era. You've got Steve Kerr saying, I'm not sure why I've ever seen a game like this. And by the way, it's not bad offense. It's not like it's ugly. There was beautiful basketball being played. Like Steve Kerr said, 39 assists, 4-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio. They were moving the ball and generating good shots. But I don't like this trend. I think we're out of balance in the NBA. And by the way, you know who agrees with me? The NBA does. Because last year, Spears, midway through the season, when we were seeing all kinds of huge scoring numbers, which the three-pointer was a part of, they changed the way the game was officiated to make it more defensively physical. And so they, I think, realize that this probably is a little bit out of control.
A little bit out of control. And I think Brian Windhorst is absolutely right. What's happened is that the three is actually overpowered right now. And so what's happening is teams are just spamming three-point shots. And for fans, it gets boring. It's the same reason why the All-Star game is boring. I detest the NBA All-Star game. I hope that the changes they made this year with the mini tournament situation will improve things. But the reason why it's boring is because you're seeing the same thing over and over again. Yes, these guys can do breathtaking things like throw down dunks, but when there's no defense there, it just gets repetitive and old. And that's kind of what we're seeing in the NBA right now as teams just jack up three after three after three. And this year, it's gotten way worse than we've ever seen before. Now, the reason why teams are doing it, though, is because the math works that way. The math says it makes sense to do this, to shoot more threes, to take shots at the rim and take threes and not take the mid-range shots. Again, that's just what the math will tell you. But the problem is from the viewer's perspective, which is everything to the NBA, from the audience's perspective, it's not all that fun to watch guys just constantly come down and shoot a three. Essentially, winning in the NBA right now oftentimes comes down to, did you shoot a good percentage from three? Did you shoot a bad percentage? And there's so much more to this game that should matter. But oftentimes all you have to do is look and go, oh, this team shot 20% from three tonight. Yeah, they have no way to win that game. They're going to lose because it's so difficult with the volume of threes shot to win a game if you don't shoot particularly well. Conversely, if you shoot 55% from three for a game, that team won. That's it, right? Because how are you going to overcome that if you're the opposing team? It is such a challenge in the NBA that there's so much placed upon the three-point shooting. And Adam Silver at the NBA Cup did address the issue. Here's what he said without really saying he was going to change things. He said, historically, at times, we've moved the three-point line. I don't think that's a solution here because then I think when we look at both the game and the data, I think that may not necessarily do more mid-range jumpers if that's what people want, but more clogging under the basket. So first of all, let me just, before I get into this, let me say I think he's wrong. I think he's wrong. I don't think what people want is more mid-range jumpers. I don't think there are people, and there could be some, I'm sure, out there. Some of you maybe watching right now think this, but I don't think there's people just pining for the days of Kobe and Jordan, and to a lesser degree, you get into some of your other mid-range, your Jerry Stackhouses and Rip Hamilton, and right, I mean, there's like a whole generation of players who were masters of the mid-range game. I don't think it's just that people want to see that, oh, we love mid-range shots. No, it's people don't want to see too much of any one thing. That's it. People don't want to see too much of any one thing. Threes are awesome in moderation, just like most things in life, right? Anything has to be in moderation. You can get the best pizza in the world, but if you get it every single day, you're going to get sick of it. People don't want to see, they want variety. They don't want to see the same thing all the time, and that includes NBA offenses. I'm going to get to that in just a second. But Silver goes on to say whether there's some tweaks to make, and my sense is I do think we should take seriously this notion of more diversity in offense. Yes, I watch as many games as all of you do, and to the extent that it's not so much a three-point issue, but that some of the audience, some of the offenses start to look sort of cookie cutter, and teams are copying each other. I think that's something we should pay attention to. Look, teams copying each other is nothing new. The NBA has been a copycat league forever. One team figures out something, everybody else copies it. Look at what happened. I mean, the 7 seconds or less Suns were revolutionary with the way they approached the game of basketball. And so quickly, teams started to follow suit and copy that. And now we're at a point where teams are making the 7 seconds or less Suns look downright slow, like they're moving at a snail's pace, because the NBA has continued to grow and develop along that concept. But it is a copycat league. Teams will copy each other. But again, that's not a positive for the viewer. Now, the problem is that what the viewer sees isn't always accurate, right? Are NBA teams actually copying each other? Yes and no. Teams are trying to create space. That's offenses right now are trying to create space, period. That's what they're trying to do, as they should. They're trying to create space. Now, what they do with that space may be different. For some teams, they're going to utilize that space to get to the basket, get to the rim, drive. They're going to run different actions and things of that nature. Other teams, they're going to focus on creating that space so they can create more opportunities to kick out for threes. And that's what they're going to look for. You look at the Denver Nuggets, you look at the Boston Celtics, two extremes. The Denver Nuggets are creating space in order to give Nikola Jokic more operating move room in the paint. They shoot a league low of threes. The Boston Celtics shoot nearly double the threes of the Denver Nuggets, and they create space to drive and kick out for open three-point attempts. And of course, the Celtics are the reigning NBA champs. The problem, though, is from the viewer's perspective, what you're seeing is teams doing the same stuff. Yes, they might be creating space for different reasons, but as Adam Silver says, you need to have some diversity of offense. Back in the day, you think about certain teams would try the Twin Towers approach. All right, we're going to be a team that's going to employ two bigs. They're going to be in the paint. We're going to bully everybody, and that's what we're going to do. Other teams would say, we're going to play small. We're going to play fast. We're going to do these types of things. You had different strategies being thrown at each other, and that was exciting in and of itself. Which style is right? Think about how the early days of the UFC was initially marketed as find out what is the best combat style in the world. We're going to put a karate guy against a jiu-jitsu guy, against a taekwondo guy, and against a wrestler, against a boxer, and one random guy is going to wear one glove and all kinds of. That was how it was initially marketed, and while it is not that anymore, the concept, the idea that you're going to have teams using different styles, that draws attention. That's interesting. Which style is going to win out? And we don't see that as much in the NBA now. Now, teams are running similar stuff. It's the high pick and roll. Everybody runs horns. Everybody runs the same kind of stuff in order to create space. Again, I find some beauty in what they can do with that space and what they ultimately accomplish with it, their approach from there. But I get it why for a lot of fans, you just kind of see teams doing the same stuff in terms of what they're running. They're doing similar things every single night. And this is how bad it's gotten, or how good it's gotten, depending on your perspective. The Boston Celtics, 51.1 three-point attempts. Look at this. The first time ever, we've got a team that is taking more than half of their shots. They shoot 91.1 shots per game. 51 of them, more than half of their shots, are coming from behind the arc. Unreal. Remember, the Celtics led the NBA in three-point attempts last season, but just look at how bad this is. How big of a jump. 42.5 per game last season. 42.5 per game last season. And the Celtics led the NBA in three-point attempts by a decent margin, a pretty big margin. And look at the jump. 51.1. That's why this is front of mind for everybody. Because this is a massive leap. Now we're seeing teams push things to the extreme with this. Oftentimes, that's when change is needed. When things get this far, that's when you say, okay, it's time. Something is wrong here. It's time to make this back into something of more of a moderate thing, a feature of the game and not the game itself. You go back 10 years. I'm not saying the game has not improved since then, but you go back 10 years, 32.7 threes per game. The Houston Rockets led the NBA by a lot. 27.5 was the next highest. 32.7. That was the highest 10 years ago. You go to today, the low. Well, the Denver Nuggets are a bit of an outlier. 32.7. The Houston Rockets would be second to last. They led the NBA by a wide margin 10 years ago. They'd be second to last in the NBA today in three-point attempts. The game has grown. The game has evolved. Once again, it's simple math. If you take, let's just make it easy, if you take 100 shots from three and you shoot 40% from three, well, that's 120 points that you're creating. If you shoot 100 shots from two and you shoot 50% from two, a higher percentage, that's only 100 points. The math says you should be taking more threes and more shots right at the rim, where your finishing percentage is going to go way up. That's actually, I think, an even more valuable shot than the three. It's the bucket right at the rim, and you create space at the rim by shooting the three. But nonetheless, we're seeing more and more people come to agree that the NBA needs to do something, that things are simply too similar to keep the interest of fans. You're tuning in, night out, and you're watching teams shoot threes and shoot. And I'll tell you what, if you get two teams that happen to be cold from three that night, you get an ugly game. You get a gross, ugly performance if you happen to get a couple of teams that are off from behind the arc. And it's almost comical now to the degree that teams will hunt three-point shots. Teams will pass up layups to go kick out for an open three. That's where we're at in the NBA right now. So yes, I do think change is needed. I don't think it's going to happen naturally because shooters are simply too good now. Is it moving the three-point line? I've seen some people suggest limiting the number of threes a team is allowed to take in a game. Maybe that's going a little bit far. Is it moving the three-point line back a little bit? Maybe, but then you've got guys like Steph, like Trey, that are shooting threes from like almost half court anyway. I think it's going to be interesting to see how the NBA approaches this, because I do think they have a problem on their hands. Look, viewership is down. We know that. Is it down as much as people are making it out to be? Maybe not. But viewership is down. That's something that we're seeing. That's real. They're trying the NBA Cup. We'll talk more about that in another video. They're trying to do things to increase fan engagement. It's the reason why they have the play-in tournament. They want fans to be engaged. This is the next problem for them to tackle. Tanking was something to tackle. Flopping was something to deal with. We saw the NBA had to deal with all of the issues that you had with players, with teams feeling like they were out of the running early on in the season, and therefore those fans checking out in like December. That's part of why the play-in tournament was created, to keep fans interested. This is the next challenge for them to figure out. It's what do you do to curb the three-point shooting and ultimately, big picture, create more diversity on the offensive end of the floor and therefore create more interest in the product. Let me know your thoughts. What do you guys think? What should the NBA do? If anything, should they do nothing? Just leave it unchecked? Or should they do something to try to discourage teams from shooting so many threes? Let me know in the comment section down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. And go check out our latest video about the rumors Zach LaVine could land with the Denver Nuggets.